Howdy y'all, welcome to this training video we're putting together here for the engineers test preparation. This will be a simulation of everything that you will actually do during the testing process. It's going to begin in an office of whatever station we're at, read you a little script, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to give you the details. First thing you got to show up with is obviously your driver's license. No driver's license, no testing process. And what you're going to do is just like you're coming on duty of a 48-hour shift, you're going to go out and do your engine checkoff as it is in the S drive. You'll be doing the air brake test. You'll be doing the pump panel test. And then you'll also have to input it into ESO. So that's kind of the gist of what we're going to be going over. And next thing we'll do is head out to the bay just like we're going to do. All right, so we went from the office. We're coming out into the bay. This is going to be our apparatus. Ryan's going to be our engineer here as if he's going through the testing process. We're going to come out to the bay. First things he's going to do is ask his off-going engineer, which is clearly stated on your paper here, if there's any pertinent information that he needs to know. So we'll just simulate that Ryan has asked the other engineer who's in the bay, and then Ryan's going to go ahead and get started with doing his checkoffs.
Okay, so I showed up for my engineer's test, and I came prepared with my the provided checkoff list that we provide for you. I checked with my off-going engineer. He gave me some information. I might write that down. Some of that stuff might be important. And then I'm just going to go down the list. There's no wrong way to do this. If you want to start on the inside of the cab, or you want to start under the truck, or you want to go down this exactly how it's printed, however you're comfortable doing it. I'm going to just go down the list and get it started and show how it's going to go. I'm going to start with engine compartment checkoff. I'm going to get under the truck and I'm going to check for fluid leaks. Visually inspect under the truck for any visible fluid leaks. So here we go. Everything that I do on my checkoff, even if I'm physically doing it, I'm also going to verbalize that I'm doing it in case the people that are doing the checkoff are questioning what I'm doing. At least if I verbalize it, it might key them into knowing what I'm actually doing. So I'm going to get under the truck here, and I'm going to check for leaks. Okay. So I can see that there's a little bit of old oil on the bay floor here. As we get into this, I am going to be provided with a creeper, and I'll be climbing under this a little bit more. But for this first part, looking for fluid leaks, I don't see anything that's extraordinary to what we normally see in the bay. If I did come across a fluid leak, I would document it and pass that on to the appropriate channels, which is document it in ESO and send an email to the apparatus group. The next thing on the list is tire condition. So I'm going to come to this tire, looking at the sidewall of it, looking at the tread depth, and I'm going to do that for the entire truck. If I see a tire that looks to be improperly inflated, I would take the steps to probably check it with the tire pressure gauge. But mind you, we're doing a daily check, not a weekly check. So there is a little bit of difference between those two, but for the engineer's test, it is a daily check. While we're here too, the hub oil seals. We're checking this, making sure this is good, and checking the hub oil level. Here on engine 4, at least this left front is just indicating that it is good. I would do that on the other side of the truck as well. I'm gonna grab a creeper at this point for my check. Heads up, Tyler. You're good. Going down the list, The next thing that I have on the list is I'm going to be checking the air tanks. The air tanks to make sure that we don't have any audible leaks. And we're going to get into some other stuff while I'm down there too.
All right, so moving on to the next portion of the test, we're looking at the underside of the truck. And we put you guys underneath the truck. The best ways to get on a creeper allows for the easiest way to kind of move around, look at things, and check things out. Once again, we're not asking you to be a professional mechanic, but more or less just looking for certain things that don't look right. So as you're in the front of the truck, you're looking at parts of the steering, components of the steering, checking the linkage, the steering box, seeing if there's any leaks, things like that. You're also, while you're there, looking at the leaf springs, making sure they're not cracked or bent. And then as far as the brakes go, you're just looking at the inside components of the brake. Make sure nothing's hanging off. Make sure the lines are intact. Make sure there's no obvious cracks or anything like that. And you can just kind of roll around, look for any deficiency. You can check the frame, wiring, and things like that again to keep on moving on. As you come through the truck, we'll move a little bit further down. As you come back through here, as you get to the middle center of the truck, you're going to be looking for such things as the exhaust system. You're going to be looking at the drive line, and once again, checking the overall condition of the frame, the wiring, things like that. You can see the underside of your pump, see if you have any major leaks there as well. And then once again, moving on to the rear of the truck, back here, if it's equipped with airbags, you can check those. You want to check out, see if your fuel tanks not being damaged, no dings or dents, also in your air tanks as well. And then once again, you're looking at the rear leaf springs, framing, things like that. And so, yeah, once again, you're just kind of looking at the overall underneath of the truck for all the things that are listed on your sheet here. And you're just looking for any major deficiencies. It should take you no more than about 45 seconds to a couple minutes at the most as you wheel around, double check things. You want to make sure you're verbalizing what you're looking at. If you're in the back of the truck back here near the rear axle and you're talking about looking at your steering housing and your steering components, obviously you won't get credit for it because you're not in the area. So if you're in the area of whatever it is you're looking at, make sure you're verbalizing that so we know what it is you're checking.
Okay, so after I've done my engine compartment and under the truck check, the next thing on the list is inside the cab. When you're inside the cab, you are provided with some helpers to help you check it with the checking of the lights. So obviously you're going to want to make sure that the power's on and that you have the ignition in the up position for some of the lights. You're not going to start the truck at this time, but you are going to be checking all of the lights. That's running lights and emergency lights and all the stuff that is accessed from inside the cab as far as lights and seats and windshield wipers and stuff like that. So for me, going from the top of the list, I'm going to go with the headlights with the helper outside. Headlights? Headlights good. Right. Lights are good. Left turn signal. Turn signal good. Right turn signal. Good. Four-way flasher. Good. And then we're also going to get into starting the truck because you're going to be checking oil pressure, the voltmeter, fuel level, heater defrost, and this is all spelled out for you on this list. And it's probably a good habit to get into when you're checking this stuff. If you're going to touch a light, make sure you're verbalizing what you're doing. Like, we can see what you're doing, but it is definitely helpful if you're turning on the emergency lights and you're going to utilize the helpers that you say, I'm turning on the emergency lights. And they're going to say, yep, you're good. Or we have one of the lights is out. And then you can document that as being a deficiency that you observed during your daily check.
All right, so we're moving through. Ryan did a full check off of inside the compartment, went through all the lights, went through all his gauges, all that stuff, make sure the engine's operating correctly. The next portion that you're going to be rolling through is going through all your, up on top of the cab, all your compartments, all that stuff. And Ryan's going to show you how to do that in a couple minutes. But something I want to make mention of is that typically they're we're going to stage deficiencies that are going to be within the truck. And so we definitely want you to go through everything, and those deficiencies do have a point value as well. And so it's important that if you find something that's wrong with the truck, that you verbalize it and write it down, because that'll be affected on your scoring as well. So Ryan's going to move on with the next portion.
All right, so like what Greg was saying, here I am at the inventory part of the truck. You're going to want to leave no compartments closed. You're going to want to literally put your hands and touch every part of this truck. Those deficiencies that Greg talked about in their point value could make a huge difference in your test score. So I'm going to start right here and literally go around the entire truck. And start off right here on my Matty Dales. Looks like these are here with their nozzles in place. Come back this way, we have our front chalk block is here. And then I'm going to start going compartment by compartment. And I'm going to get in this as deep as I want, making sure that we have a short section of supply hose and the tools needed in the engineer's compartment. I'm going to check all of our extra bottles, make sure we don't have any that are low or missing. Get into here and make sure that everything's good. This truck has some extra equipment. We have some extrication equipment here. I'm going to put my hands on that, make sure that it's operating, that we have batteries, and then everything that is in a compartment is there and in working condition. We have a fuel cap. We have another bottle that's full. This compartment has everything in it. We have a water can. I'm going to check the pressure on that. Make sure that we have our ice water rescue in service. I'm going to look and make sure that all the equipment that is in this compartment is there and in working condition. We have our hose clamp. Our fan is set up the way that we keep them in storage. We have our water supply tools in place and all the hose and nozzles and pre-connected hoses are set up for operation. Hard suction. Our ladder rack has the tools on it, and I would continue this around the truck until I've literally put my hands or checked every piece of equipment on this truck.
All right, so Ryan's gone through his entire truck now. He did the underneath. He checked all his compartments. The next portion of the test he's going to do is complete his air brake test. A couple key components to the air brake test. The truck will be on. It will be running. So it's up to you if you want to pull it outside onto a flat surface or do it in the bay. One word of caution we like to say is the Plima vent does get hot sometimes. So you might want to disconnect that and make sure you're not going to melt the Plima vent and cause any damage. So Ryan will do the portion of the air brake test, show you how to do that. It's step by step in the paper. As long as you've done it a few times, should be no problem.
Okay, so I've set my chalk block and I'm on a flat surface. I'm going to go down the list, literally down the list on doing a daily brake test on engine 4 here. So the first thing is I'm going to turn the master power on, and then I'm going to have the ignition in the keyed up position to ensure that I'm going to get the proper alarms that we're looking for during this brake test. So the first thing I want to do is release the parking brake. Make sure this thing's not going to roll. We got no roll. You close your door so you don't get that. So I have the ignition in the up position, and I'm going to time the rate of drop, which is no more than 2 psi a minute. So right now I'm looking at my front and rear air pressure gauge after releasing the parking brake, and going to time this, and I can see that it's holding exactly at 90 psi in this moment. So it's passing that test. Now I'm going to hold pressure on the brake, no pumping of the brakes, and I'm going to visually look at my gauges and ensure that they do not drop more than 3 psi over a minute's time. So we have good air pressure there. I would be using a clock and probably not doing it for a whole minute. I might do 30 seconds and then multiply the how much drop was over 30 seconds, multiply it by 2. This engine is holding exactly at 80 psi in this moment. So I'm going to continue on and do the pedal test. So I'm pumping the brakes down, watching my gauges. I have an audible alarm that kicked on right around 60 psi. I'm going to make note of that, which is what we're looking for. That's an audible check gauges and air pressure low. I'm going to continue now to pump the brakes, and I'm looking for the parking brake to pop off around 20 to 40 psi. My air brake is popped back off, and we're exactly 40 psi on the rear. At this time, I'm going to restart the engine. I'm going to go ahead and flip on the high idle on the truck, and I'm going to watch the rate of fill, and then continue on through the rest of the brake check as outlined in the sheet. Okay, so in the brake test, what I started showing was the air leakage rate, the low pressure warning signal check, the spring brake check, pressure build test, governor cut in and cut out test. So now I've gone through all that stuff, and I've let the air pressure build up to 120, 125 psi. So this truck is full of air for the brake test, and I'm going to do the parking brake test. So at this point, I have removed the chock block, and I'm going to have the engine running, and I'm going to try to drive through the parking brake to make sure that it has proper hold. And then after I'm done with that test, I will test the service brakes, which involves driving down a flattish or a straight line and applying the brakes with light pressure on the steering wheel to ensure that the truck's not pulling to the left or the right. My parking brake is engaged. I have my foot on the brake. The truck is clear. I have the truck in drive. I'm applying light pressure, and I can feel that the parking brake is holding appropriately. Then I would proceed on to the test the service brakes, and you do that the way that I just explained earlier. Okay, so I've done the other checks as part of the test. I've now moved on to the pump check. I'm going to start in the cab, and I'm going to start the engine. I'll be engaging the pump. I'll be getting out of the truck. I'll be doing the process for checking the pump. See that my pump is engaged. Be checking my gauges. water level, foam level, take the pumps open, green lights on for putting it in pump, checking my pump panel discharge pressure. Leave out the gauge. Okay, so I'm finishing up my pump check. With the truck on and the ignition in the up position, after I disengage the pump, or during, I could have been checking my pump panel lights. And then after it's disengaged, I'm going to go through and I'm going to drain, open and close all the drains and make sure that everything's in operation. Pull the chalk block, put it back in the service that we're ready to go on a call. After you're done with this portion of the test, if this is your last portion of the test and you still have time left, you can go back through your notes, go back through your checklist, make sure that you left no stone unturned, to make sure that you didn't miss anything at that point. You have the entire time allotted, and when you feel like you're comfortable being done, even if you have time left, you say, I'm done with the test, and we'll move on to the last portion of the test.
All right, so Ryan's completed everything he needed to in the bay. He did his daily checklist. He completed his air brake test. He did his pump panel test. And the test is not concluded yet because he still needs to input his daily check into ESO. So also I want to bring up that this is a timed event all the way from the time that we get into the bay until you're done doing your ESO entry. You have a 40-minute time limit, which should be plenty of time to get everything completed without going over your time limit. If for some reason you go over the 40 minutes, wherever you are at 40 minutes, the test concludes, you don't get credit for anything that's not been completed. So that's about it, and we'll show you here how to do the ESO entry. All right, lastly, what we're going to do is come in here and put our ESO entry in. So I logged into ESO. I'm going to click on Activities. I want to go over here to Create an Operational Task. Task name is going to be Daily Checkoff. Task type, maintenance and inventory. The tags associated with this are going to be apparatus and equipment that I completely checked. And it is completed. Today's date, the 29th. We did it from 0810 to 0840. Today's date. And lastly, I want to go down to my unit, which is going to be engine 4. Hit close, and then you hit OK to save it. That's it.